Salut my little baguettes, welcome to l'Académie Équilibre, your go-to place to master every single tense in French. And today's target is le futur proche, so let's begin. The first thing that we need to understand is what does the title mean? What does it stand for? So what we know is that we're talking about a tense. Now what kind? So futur tells you that we're talking about the future, right? So the future. But what is proche? Now proche in French means near. So now that means we're talking about the near future, something that is going to happen in a short while, in the near future, that is your immediate future. For example, something that is going to happen in a few minutes, right? In a few hours. So we'll take an example in English. So when we say things like, I'm going to do this, right? I'm going to the mall. He's going to school, or she's going to work. So all of that is your near future. Now, what is common in these three sentences? The first thing is that all three of them are talking about the near future, right? So she is going to study for the exam. That is, for the exam, very soon, she is going to start studying. Now, the second thing that you'll see in all three sentences is going to, right? I'm going to, she is going to, and he is going to, right? Now, what is the purpose of this is that it indicates the near future. Okay, so when I put I'm going to XYZ, right? I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. That is telling you that I'm talking about the near future. Now, the second thing that is common in all three sentences is the part going to, right? That is repeated. So I'm going to study, she is going to play, or he is going to eat. So what is the purpose of going to? Okay, it is there to tell you we're talking about the near future. It is indicating that to study or to play or to eat is going to happen very soon. So you'll find whenever we talk about the near future, there will be two verbs. Okay, first is your go to, right? That is going to do something. And second is your main verb, that is your main action. Why are we calling it main? Because it is the verb that is telling you the actual thing that is going to happen. That is study, play, eat. These are your main verbs, the second verb. And the first one, even though it's not telling you about the action, it is telling you about the timing of the action. That is soon. So the main verb will change according to whatever action we're talking about. Going to will remain same. Now the same thing happens in French. Alright, the same structure is followed in French as well. How do we write it then? We're going to understand that through the formation. That is your la formation. So we'll start with your subject, right? That is I, she, he. So first thing in the sentence will be your sujet. Second thing is the verb going to, as in aller in French. Aller is to go. Now how do we conjugate this aller? Normally in the present tense. Then we have our main verb. Now this one is extremely easy. This part is super simple. Why? Because you don't have to conjugate the second verb. You leave it in the infinitive form, that is non-conjugated. What is infinitive? The er, ir or re ending that we have, you leave it as it is. No modifications required in the second verb. And then you write the rest of your sentence, which is your objet. Like here it is, for the exam, with her friends, his food, all of that is your rest of the sentence. Our main focus should be on aller and your main verb. This is our main thing. So you'll have two verbs in French as well. The structure is the same, that is aller will indicate the time, as in the near future, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, while your second verb, your main verb, will indicate the actual thing that is going to happen in said future. Now, the extremely important thing that you need to memorize for that is the conjugation of aller. Without the conjugation of aller, you cannot do futur proche. So how do we do it? With je, it is je vais, tu vas, elle va, nous allons, vous allez, ils vont. Okay, so this is the conjugation of aller in present tense, and since it is an exception, you have no choice but to memorize it. And once that is done, the main verb poses no problem for you. Okay, so now we'll try to put the same three sentences in French. Okay, so first one is I'm going to study for the exam. So this is what we get, right? To study is étudier. Okay, so first thing that we need to do is conjugate aller with je as your subject. So there you get je vais. I am going to do something, right? In this case, we're going to study, étudier. Now here your job is really easy. Once you've conjugated aller correctly, you can just take the verb in the bracket and put it as it is. Because it will be given to you in the infinitive form, you don't have to conjugate it, you don't have to modify the verb at all. You can just write it as it is. Right. For the second sentence, same thing, that is, she is going to play with her friends. Now, here, what is going to happen? To play, right? Jouer is your verb there. So, she is going to play. Now, to put it into future proche, you're going to conjugate aller with elle. So, you get elle va and then write jouer as it is. So, you get elle va jouer. She is going to play with her friends. Now, for the third one, I've taken a different sentence. That is, we are going to finish our homework. Now, to conjugate it with nous, you will write nous allons and then finir as it is. So you get the gist, right? Your job is only to conjugate aller and then take whatever is given to you in the bracket and put it after aller, and you'll get future proche. Now the question is, how do we do the same thing in negative? That is, I'm not going to study, I'm not going to finish my homework. Right, so how do we bring future proche, that is something you're not going to do in the future, in French? So there we know how do we do negative. We do ne plus verb plus pas. That is your format, right? But in future proche, you have two verbs. So what are we supposed to do? So where does the ne pas come? With the first verb or the second verb? So there you need to understand we follow this thing called first come first serve basis. We know that, right? So you can apply it to negative as well. That is, whoever comes first gets it, right? So here, which will be your first verb? Aller is always and always going to be your first verb in the formation, right? So it always begins with aller, then comes the second verb, whatever it can be. So there, that means in negative, the ne pas happens with aller. So you get the format as something like. Now here you need to understand with nous and vous, it starts with a vowel, right? The conjugation starts with a vowel. So there you have to put an apostrophe. So for instance, we'll make this sentence into negative. So as I told you, aller is there, ne will come before it, pas will come after it, fini, you write it as it is. An apostrophe to avoid the vowel clash. So what is our format then? You can say la formation. Okay, and for us, this is the most important part. Because I've seen some people, they put ne pas with the second verb, like finir. Or they'll put it with étudier or jouer. Okay, so that is completely incorrect. You need to know that the ne pas always and always goes with aller as your first verb. So again, you get sentences like elle ne va pas jouer avec ses amis. Now, our next topic is future proche with pronominal verbs. In case you're not sure how to conjugate pronominal verbs in present tense, I would recommend watching my video on that to get some clarity in order to understand how do we do it with future proche. Okay? So I'll give you a sentence in present first and then we'll bring it into the future. So I wake up at 8 a.m. Now I want to say I'm going to wake up at 8 a.m. So now I want to make it into the future. How do I do that? For that, you need to understand the formation. It is more or less the same as how we do it in the present tense. But what is the difference? That is your prono, which is your extra thing, right? So the question is, where does the prono go? So we get the subject, we get your aller as it is, then your prono comes, which is your me, the, se, etc., right? And then your main verb comes and your rest of the sentence, which is your objet. So now if I were to convert this, I would get je vais me, and this réveil becomes réveiller because it has to be in the infinitive form. So you get je vais me réveiller. Now this is my sentence and I have to conjugate this in future proche, right? Now generally what we do, we conjugate aller with your subject and we put the verb as it is in the blank. But here you have an extra thing, that is the prono. So you have to conjugate the prono according to your subject. So now you have two steps. Conjugate aller in the present tense as we usually do, but now you also have to change the prono according to your subject. So I get tu vas and this se becomes te. So tu vas te laver. You're going to wash yourself. Now if we were to make these sentences into negative, again we'll take the same format of negative. It's pretty simple. That is, I told you the ne pas will go with aller. So you get sujet plus ne plus aller conjugated plus pas, and then the extra thing is your prono. Okay, that is your prono will stay with your main verb. I'm writing m dot v as in the main verb and then your rest of the sentence, which is your objet. For example, I'll take the same sentence and make it into negative. So you get tu ne vas pas te laver. Right, so ne before the verb, pas after the verb, and you leave it as it is. So now this was your future proche. We understood the meaning of it, we understood how to normally do it, how to do negative with it, and pronominal verbs with it. I hope it's clear. Thank you.